I guess for the first question, I figured we'd go like real philosophical with this before we go into memes. So, how do you
Mm-hmm.
define what self is?
I
But you,
think
Nick,
self is your inherent mental and personality traits that you are born with that stay consistent throughout your whole life. Obviously, there's other traits about yourself that change over time, but there's those underlying personality and mental traits that start from birth and persist all the way throughout your life, and no matter what, you can't really take it away. Like, even if you try to, like, let's say you dislike one of those traits about yourself, you try to better yourself no matter how hard you try, you can't take away that trait completely. Maybe some aspect of it, but not completely, you know.
Hmm.
So
so I
those category of traits.
Hmm.
So you're saying I was born a bitch?
I don't know if this is an instance of me being like a boomer again, because I'm like 30, but I can't think of like a consistent thing that I've held throughout my life. Like I used to be really like, what do you call it, like introverted, like really hidden behind other people when I was like a lot younger. And like come like 2025, like a lot of shit changed with me. Like my confidence levels changed, like how I viewed the world changed, like everything about me changed. A bit of it was like facing trauma and all that business, you know, but like a lot of things like sort of held me in place changed. And I can't think of anything that was really consistent about me. It's really stuck since, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I used to be like more introverted, and recently I feel like I've become more extroverted in certain ways. But that same energy, whether I'm extroverted or introverted, stayed within me. It's just that when I'm introverted, I don't express it to other people, but it's still like within me, that same like energy and traits and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's a way you can change from introvert to extrovert without having, I guess, the core change. But the core is really hard to define. Even if you were to ask me what those traits are, I couldn't say it off the top of my head. But there is, I feel, something like an inherent energy about you that stays consistent no matter how much you change as a person.
That's
At
what
least that's what
parents
I've observed.
that's what parents tend to say, and the psych literature seems to validate that. So there's like some plasticity before people are about age 25. Once people get to about 25, their personality, like their expression of things, does not change very much, right?
Hmm.
There's also a So difference between having an
It,
intrinsic
mhm.
personality trait and like how you express it. It's like it could be that you're, let's say, 30th percentile introverted or whatever, right? And it's like you could be more reserved and then become more outgoing, but like Bowblax was saying, there's still this sort of underlying thing where you tend to be a bit more introverted. It's just that you express it differently over time as
Yeah,
circumstances change or whatever.
exactly.
I've said this before, but like I work in youth work outside of doing all of this, right? Like my main career is like working like with foster kids and shit. And the way that they like treat like trauma, like childhood trauma, is by using the brain's plasticity to get it to like reassociate different things with other things, because like your brain works all through associations. It's like I try to like use metaphor to like explain this. If you go to work, right, like everyone here has had like a job and you drive to work every day, right? And if you've got to go do something in the same area, you'll like start driving and you'll take the exit to work, right? If you've ever done it before, like
Hmm.
like you won't be thinking, and then your brain will go into autopilot and you'll go start driving to work, right? Because again, your brain works the same ways. It's got its little lines that it likes to draw to get from neuron to neuron to neuron to neuron, right? And that trauma sets those pathways in place. So what like a lot of like trauma therapy tends to do is like redraw those pathways and use the brain's plasticity to recreate those connections, because your brain is still incredibly plastic. Like even as you get into old age, like it's more so when you're younger, obviously when it's forming, but like it's interesting how we can still like rechange those pathway alignments, like our habits, as we sort of like get older. I don't know. It's super hype to me.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Fuck. Mhm.
When I was really young, I think I was very, very introverted. But I think part of that was just me being like terrified all the time. Um, and then I think around like 18 or 19, I think my personality changed radically. And I became a much more extroverted person. I wouldn't say that I've ever been like super confident. Maybe like I don't know, like despite these radical changes, there's always been like an indecisiveness in me, I feel like. And that's kind of maybe that's my defining personality trait, maybe. I
Well,
don't know.
streaming's always going to bring that out of you. Like when you start streaming and talking to your audience and then talking to all these other people and stuff like that,
Mhm.
it does build your confidence per se, be more
Yeah.
like out there. I noticed like public speaking for me is way easier now than it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Same.